Coming up on today's programme.
The English Defence League protested on the streets of Manchester against so-called radical Islamists.
We look at gender inequality in science, engineering and technology.
And our in-house film buff Tom joins us to give us his take on Still Alice. Good afternoon, welcome to Quays News with Inzamam Rashid and Hannah Smith.
Our top story this Tuesday lunchtime. Greater Manchester Police have refused to name 23 missing sex offenders as it would breach their human rights. The number of registered offenders who've gone missing has increased over the past 5 years, with many relocating abroad. The region has the third highest number of missing offenders in England and Wales. The 23 from Greater Manchester are among the 391 missing nationally, including some who have been missing for more than a decade.
Dale Cregan murder of police officers Nicola Hughes and Fiona Bone has been found with drugs and a mobile phone in his cell at Strangeways Prison. After being jailed in 2013, he's also been found passing illegal substances around the prison. Cregan has reportedly been placed in solitary confinement for 3 weeks as an investigation is launched.
Arsonists have torched 5 vehicles in the past 2 nights in a private car park in Stockport. Firefighters were called to the residents-only car park on Old Chapel Street in Edgeley at 4:30 a.m. on Sunday. And in the early hours of Monday morning, a Citroen Saxo was torched and the flames spread to another car nearby. Firefighters believe on each occasion the perpetrators smashed the passenger window of the car and put lit material inside. Greater Manchester Police are now investigating.
Against what they refer to as grooming gangs. Over 250 police officers were patrolling Piccadilly Gardens and streets were closed around the city to accommodate the march.
Officers surrounded protesters to keep them away from members of the public, although only 4 arrests were made. Our reporter Paul Robinson was there.
There are a predicted 400 members of the English Defence League here protesting today in Albert Square. It is assumed that later 400 members of Unite Against Fascism will arrive to counter-protest. Protecting members of the public from this event is currently cost for police £250,000, with it estimated to rise to over 300 by the end of the day.
The English Defence League say they are protesting against radical Islam, but their banners suggest otherwise, making claims that rape gangs in Britain are all Muslim men. The public have been separated by multiple barriers, but this hasn't stopped some counter-protesters from making their voices heard.
When they go around shouting about, burning all mosques and stuff, they're kind of a bit racist.
So the EDL have come, they say they want to spread the hatred and say we don't want anybody who's not white and English in our country and we hate anybody else. We're saying no, we're a multicultural country. Manchester especially is a multicultural city, majorly multicultural, and we're going to say if you want to be angry over there, we'll be happy, peaceful, all get along and show you how it can be.
The EDL, however, states that they are accepting of anyone that shares their beliefs, releasing a statement to say the EDL is keen to join with others who share our values, no matter their cultural background. The EDL protesters were bussed out of the city centre. Greater Manchester's Police and Crime Commissioner, Tony Lloyd, says he hopes they won't come back. Paul Robinson, Quays News.
With International Women's Day being celebrated across the world on Sunday, it's highlighted the need for more women to be involved in male-dominated industries. One of those is the field of science, engineering and technology, which has less than 20% of female workforce globally.
At the University of Salford, the SET academic department has only 1 in 10 female staff. Siobhan Maguire finds out if there are any signs that the gender balance is set to change.
The He for She conference was watched over 11 million times, sparking 1.2 billion social media conversations.
Actress Emma Watson speaking for the UN campaign He for She, which is asking for men to support gender equality for women.
One industry which lacks female representation is science, engineering and technology. Despite many women making an impact in this field over the centuries, it continues to be seen as an area with a male-only career path.
While research shows that science is enjoyed by young children at primary age, after the age of 16 it becomes less of an attraction. However, there are more women now pursuing their goal to succeed in this area.
I think the phenomenal about women being very weak. Gradually many women are trying to see strength in themselves. So they're trying to break barriers, break grounds that were never done before. So they try to see themselves as potential people like the male folks. So they come into the computing world seeing that they have what to contribute also.
MBE author and professor at the University of Salford, Hafia Trakruri, is an ambassador for getting women to study and work in the SET field.
It's sort of the gendering of everything really, and what's suitable for girls as a career or boys or a study. It's engrossed in the society. And there aren't that many role models or like TV soaps about women doing well and just being women, being themselves, and they can do all sorts of things. I think with the new generations and awareness of parents, awareness of schools, of career teachers, sort of slowly is moving towards the right direction, and yeah, you'll find more girls want to do science and engineering.
While there have been some changes and more women are working in this industry, it doesn't take a scientist to see that more work is needed to ensure gender equality. This is Siobhan Maguire, Quays TV News.
Now, our very own Siobhan Maguire, who did that report for us there, has joined us now to go through the front pages of today's papers. Hello, Siobhan.
Hi.
If we start first of all with the Manchester Evening News, it's a story that we covered at the beginning of the programme that 23 missing sex offenders aren't being named by police. Kind of how has this happened and what's the story behind it?
Well, really, sex offenders, whenever they change addresses or move around, they're supposed to actually let their probation officers know, or police officers. But there's also officials that are supposed to be monitoring them as well. And it just seems that these are people that have just fallen under the radar. And it has come out that, you know, Greater Manchester Police do monitor or did monitor 2,700 sex offenders in the year 2013-14. So they are still doing their work, but it just seems that these have gone missing and they're doing everything they can at the moment to try and trace them.
OK, if we move on to the Eye newspaper, it's about the wealth gap that seems to be widening. Poor are getting poorer, rich are getting richer. Is this affecting younger people in society?
Yeah, the report, which was done by the Social Market Foundation, they've kind of done a group of 26 to 35-year-olds. That kind of seems to be the youngest group that they've talked about. And they are struggling themselves because their wages have lowered over the last few years, and they're not saving as much, and you know, they're still renting as well. So it's just kind of getting on top of them, and unfortunately at the moment that's what seems to be happening, and they're on the poorer side, unfortunately.
I see. And finally, quickly, if we just look at the Metro there, this is about the dog that was poisoned at Croft. It's a big talking point.
Yeah.
How does this happen and what's investigating now?
Yeah, well, now you see 5 more dogs have actually got ill. Now, they haven't died, but the whole thing has been investigated by the Kennel Club. And one particular dog owner has said that they think that it's some rival people that are actually doing this to the dogs, but the other dog owners haven't complained, so it's just we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank
okay.
you.
Now over to film with Tom.
Now over. Tom Percival is here in the studio with his take on Still Alice. So Tom, let us know a little bit about it.
Well, I just want to start by saying I absolutely loved Still Alice. I thought a really moving, heartwarming, and really actually a very sad film. It tells the story of Julianne Moore's Alice, who's a linguistics professor in New York who unfortunately is diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and we then follow sort of her progression with the disease and how it affects her and her family. It's such a good film. Julianne Moore won the Best Actress Award for her performance, and it was incredible. Eddie Redmayne won it for Stephen Hawking, and it's a very similar sort of progression in their physicality. But for me, just it's the body horror of it, the loss of identity, the loss of self is something to worry about. Unfortunately, it's not without its faults. It can be a bit on the nose sometimes when it comes to sort of talking about this. There's a butterfly metaphor that I found a bit tortured. And unfortunately, within Manchester, it's only playing in very few cinemas. But if you can find it, please do. It's an incredible piece of cinema.
Tom, this seems to have caught you very emotively.
I know I'm a bit flappy normally, but I don't want to be like that because this is a very serious film. It's such a wonderful film and heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. And, you know, anyone can be affected by this disease. It's genuinely interesting.
Thanks very much, Tom. Appreciate that. That's the review of Still Alice. This weekend, the Holden Gallery on Cavendish Street was host to this year's Secret Vintage Wedding Fair. Evie White's got a taste of weddings through the eras.
This Sunday, the Vintage Wedding Fair was held in the city centre with many exciting and quirky stalls for brides and grooms to be.
This secret venue was only announced a few days ago on Twitter, with many people travelling up and down the country to get that extra uniqueness on their special day.
Sheffield fashion designer Kate Beaumont showcased her vintage-inspired wedding dresses in front of an eagerly anticipated audience.
I love vintage, so I've got a vintage China hire company and I've been running that for about 4 years. And I've run quite a lot of secret tea parties where we had like tea parties in a secret location and people had to find out where it was the day before. And I just wondered whether it would work with a wedding fair, so that's why we started the Vintage Wedding Fair in Manchester. I used to live in Manchester. I lived here as a student for about 10 years and worked at the City Council. I just love the city. And so it just seemed appropriate to me to do it. It's like my northern adopted home. I got married it's about 8 years ago now, and at the time it was really, really hard to find sort of different vintage, quirky or homemade inspired weddings. There were lots of lovely suppliers, but a lot were from America. Trying to find like a wedding dress that wasn't made of really heavy satin was really hard.
With the success of this year's event, the Secret Vintage Wedding Fair is set to continue again next year. Evie White, Quays News.
Now over to the sport with Lizzie.
This weekend saw FC United go 4 points clear at the top of the Evo Stick Premier Division after beating Kings Lynn 3-1. With an attendance of 2,458, it was the biggest crowd of their campaign so far. Lewis Smith reports.
FC United's bid to extend their lead at the top of the table got off to the perfect start when Shelton Payne opened the scoring. Kingsling replied when David Bridges scored a superb overhead kick.
Overhead kick, hitting the back of the net. What a good goal that was. What a good goal that was, David Bridges. Yeah, and I was saying, right, that I think...
But FC took the lead back when Shelton Payne turned provider for Craig Linfield to score. And Greg Daniels secured the points with his third goal in 5 games.
Elsewhere, there were mixed fortunes for our non-league clubs. Wrexham gained the local bragging rights after a 1-0 win against Chester on home turf. Kieran Morris with the only goal of the game to secure a win for the Dragons. Ashton United's 3-2 victory away at Buxton means that Danny Johnson's team have now moved within 4 points behind the league leaders FC United. And finally, Salford City suffered a 2-0 defeat at home to mid-table Lancaster City, but still remain top of the Evo Stick First Division North League. That's all from the sport. Back to the desk.
Fazila Helling is outside and has the latest weather forecast for you.
Good afternoon. Let's have an update on the weather for today. We have had a cold and crisp start to the day. It will be turning fine throughout the day. We will have plenty of sunshine with a light breeze reaching highs of 10 degrees. Tonight it will be turning cold with a few frosty patches, clear skies with a breeze throughout the night, and temperatures will be dropping to 3 degrees. Enjoy your Tuesday. Over to yourselves in the studio.
Thanks for that, Fazila. Now that's all we have time for today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.